What's up, everybody? GeauxBurns doing another Discuss video. And this one, I guess, is going to be part of the E3 2017 trilogy, because the first Discuss video was my predictions for E3, then your predictions for E3 2017 the next week. So, I guess, yeah, the E3 2017 Discuss trilogy, wrapping it up with this one. So today, we are discussing E3 2017, which took place last week. And basically, E3 is supposed to be like the big event. It's like the Super Bowl, the World Series, the Stanley Cup, or the Grey Cup if you're a CFL fan, or the Daytona 500 if you're a NASCAR fan when it comes to these gaming conventions. And to be honest, I've always had kind of a thing about E3. And it's not a good thing. It's more of a dislike, a distaste for it, because I always felt it was so over-the-top pomp and circumstance, and all these corporate executive suits that are at the top of these companies, you know, come out in their suits and they act like that they're gamers. They act like they're even remotely interested in the games that they're pitching to the consumers. And honestly, I seriously doubt that most of them are actually gamers. There are a few exceptions, obviously, but most of them, no, they're not. And a lot of times, it can show. It's pretty obvious. The cost of E3 is another issue I have. Not just how much money the publishers and the developers shell out trying to pimp their games. Usually at least, thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars or more each time E3 comes around. Let's talk about the consumer, what they spend to go to E3. Usually that can be hundreds of dollars to thousands of dollars. First off, you gotta book a hotel in advance. If you want a nice hotel not too far from the convention, you have to book a flight if you're gonna take a plane or a train, or rent a car if you're gonna take a vehicle to LA. And not to mention the fact that you're gonna have to eat while you are in LA for E3, so the food price goes up as well when it comes to the consumption of edibles for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So yeah, it can cost a pretty penny for the average gamer and gaming fan to go to E3. It's pretty expensive. You know, I've heard it can be anywhere from several $100s to several thousand, depending on how far in advance you plan ahead. Because if you plan ahead, you can get the room a little bit cheaper. You can get your flight booked a little cheaper as well if you do it far enough in advance. But because of the way the world is, I mean, it's hard to plan that far ahead, and usually people wait till a few months prior when it's a lot more expensive, and unfortunately they don't exactly are able to get the nicest hotels. They either go with a B&B or of a Motel 6 when it comes to going to E3. Plus, after the fact, a lot of them end up kind of under the weather afterwards, because you're around so many people, so much sickness, potential, chances of getting ill afterwards. I mean, that many people, yeah, you're bound to catch something while at E3, and it's not something fun that you're going to be catching either. There's other things that I dislike about E3 as well, but over the past few years, its popularity has kind of waned, and E3 2017 was no exception. This was a very lackluster E3, and we're going to go over, I guess we could say, the so-called winners, the losers, the games that piqued my interest, the games that I wanted to have my interest piqued, but so far they fell short. So let's do that. First off, let's go over the conferences, because there were several conferences. In fact, I was hanging out with Carrick of ACG. I'm part of his podcast, the International Podcast, with Carrick, myself, Reg Silver, a few others as well, once a week. Last weekend, we were hanging out in the ACG Discord. Carrick, myself, Cadiz, a few others, including Reg and Silver. And, we were just, making comments about the conferences, starting with the losers. We'll go with the losers, in my opinion. And I think most will agree. I mean, if you don't, you're welcome to chime in below in the comments section, as long as you keep it civil. Now, we all thought that the losers, upon watching each one, because we did watch each one, well, except for Nintendo. No, I don't want to talk about Nintendo because it's not in the losers category. But we're going with the losers first, baby. All right, so first off, E3. It was the very first conference, and it just was completely out of focus. And to be honest, it went on way too long. And in fact, it got so bad they were having guys standing outside, interviewing each other and talking about mocapping And, we just couldn't stop laughing about it. It was just so freaking ridiculous. It just felt like that E3 had a plan, but then I think they decided to move one of their games over to the Microsoft conference, and I think that kind of screwed the pooch for E3. But overall, their presentation just fell apart, and it went on for way too long. Bethesda's, on the other hand, was way too short. It went on for like 40 minutes, and there's kind of like this cartoon thing, this exploring what Bethesda World or whatever the hell it was called. They opened it with kids talking about their parents, working at Bethesda. So I guess you would have sympathy for the kids, like, oh, my mommy, my daddy works at Bethesda, and they work really hard. I guess it was trying to pull our feels, for what was about to happen. And to be honest, overall, it was nothing more than the greatest hits of Bethesda. That's the way it started. And then they started rehashing several of their games. Like, oh, we got this coming out and that coming out, but these are not new games, though. But they did have a few new games that they're working on. And at least one kind of sort of piques my interest. I'll talk about that in a minute. But I guess it was a good thing that the Bethesda conference was only 40 minutes long, because it was not very good. It should have been maybe like half that. The next loser, in my opinion, was Sony. And it's not because Sony didn't put on a good presentation. They did. They were focused. They did show off several video games. But overall, it did feel rather lackluster and boring. And what's weird is one thing we noticed in the Discord is that a lot of the games felt like they were alike. It just seemed like the games that they were showing, there seemed to be like some sort of similarity between them, even though they were being made by different companies. It was weird. Like, they showed them back to back, and they could have easily just been the same damn game. But none of them really remotely interested me. And look, I'm not into the console war. I've got a PS4. I have an Xbox One. I also have a Nintendo Switch, which is collecting dust right now. So I'm not about the console war. But Sony could have done a better job. And some of the games that I was interested in at the Sony conference kind of, let me down. We'll talk about more about that in a minute. And the final, I don't know if I really want to call them losers. Maybe I'll put them somewhere in the middle between not losing but not quite winning. I would put Ubisoft in the middle, because they did a good job too, but at the same time, with maybe one or two exceptions, they didn't really wow me. It was kind of cool that they teamed up with Nintendo with Mario Rabbids, with an XCOM type game. It's different, I will say that, for anyone that's Super Mario and Rabbids fans. I guess it's kind of a weird, twisted dream come true. So it'll be interesting to see how like Mario Rabbids ends up, turning out. Hopefully it's a decent game. But yeah, Ubisoft, they had some stuff that they brought out. At least one game interests me. Another game I really want to be interested in, but I'm just still not feeling it. I'll talk more about that in a moment. But like, Ubisoft didn't quite lose, but at the same time, they weren't exactly, lighting the world on fire when it came to their E3 conference. Now let's move over to the conferences that I consider to be the quote-unquote winners, or did at the very least a better job than the other conferences. The PC Gaming Conference. Now this is a conference that wasn't as promoted or pimped by E3 like the other conferences. But I thought they did a very good job. I thought that it felt very personable. It felt like the people that were covering it actually were passionate about PC gaming, unlike the various suits from all these other companies. These guys actually, you could feel that these were legitimately interested in the various games that they were showing during the PC Gaming Conference. And I didn't like all the games that they showed, but, for PC gamers out there, I think there was some interesting variety. So overall, I did like the presentation of the PC Gaming Conference. Then, of course, the Microsoft Conference, which was a ton of video games. They showed off a lot of games. And, a good chunk of those games were actually Microsoft exclusive. And then, of course, the big show is the Xbox One Scorpio, a.k.a. the Xbox One X, as I called it back in April on both the ACG podcast and in one of my, E3 2017 prediction videos. I just thought that Xbox One X would work, because you have the Xbox One, you have the Xbox One S. Why not the Xbox One X? And so that is the official name, the Xbox One X. And yes, to answer your question, I am very interested in the Xbox One X. $500, it's a lot of money, but I seriously think it's going to be a really good gaming console, and I'm looking forward to getting it coming up this fall. But what's fascinating is there's a lot of games that are coming out on Microsoft on the Xbox One and the Xbox One S, like before the Xbox One X comes out in November. Like, they're coming out in like September and October, and I'm just sitting there going like, well, wait a minute. If I'm looking to get an Xbox One X, because I'm definitely not going to be able to, get a new game on my current Xbox One because I have like 20 gigs at the most left of memory, I have to purchase the game in September or October, whichever game I go with for Microsoft for Xbox One, and then I got to wait a few weeks to pick up my Xbox One X before I can play the game. So that's a small issue I kind of have, is the release date regarding the Xbox One X. I think it should be dropped around, like the very beginning, September, early October. That way, you can also take advantage of these new games and play them on the brand new badass console. Then, of course, Nintendo was another winner as well. Now, this was the one conference that we did not watch in the Discord. At least I wasn't part of it, but I went back and I watched it later. And I thought Nintendo did a smashing job. I was pleasantly surprised by their performance at E3. Specifically, with Super Mario Odyssey. I was kind of on the fence about Super Mario Odyssey a few months ago, even though I am a Super Mario fan. I did not know if I was going to like Super Mario Odyssey, but it definitely was one of the better games that they showed at E3. So I'm very interested in most likely getting Super Mario Odyssey when it comes out, hopefully this fall. And for example, it'd be nice to be able to dust off my Switch. But they also showed off the Zelda DLC as well, which looks interesting too. I may have to get the Zelda DLC. I don't know if I'm gonna pick up the amiibos. I mean, I swear amiibos are just like, $15 here, $20 there. I mean, the amiibos start to add up after a while. I've got like 2, but I think 2 might be my limit. And then, of course, they announced a new Metroid. Hell yeah. I'm excited about that. The return of Samus. Oh yeah. And the final conference that was a winner was not really a conference, but we were watching it in the Discord shortly after the disappointment of the Bethesda conference, and we could not stop laughing. It was fucking hilarious. Devolver's faux conference. Now, Devolver's an indie developer, and they put on this fake digital conference, and it was freaking hilarious. The conference itself lasted like 14-15 minutes, but then after that, they did kind of like a pre-show on Twitch, and it was also being streamed on YouTube, and it was just funny as hell. I mean, we were watching it for like a good 2 or 3 hours before I just got so tired. I just had to go to bed, but it was fantastic. And I loved how Devolver was just ripping the hell out of the gaming industry. It was fantastic. I absolutely loved it, Devolver. Kudos. Not bad for a faux conference at E3. Now let's talk about the games that pique my interest and the games that I wanted to pique my interest, but at the moment don't. The first game really piquing my interest right now is Star Wars Battlefront 2, and this was probably the only shining gemstone during the EA conference. Battlefront 2 looks way more fleshed out than the first Battlefront game that EA DICE made. And I'm, as a Star Wars nerd, very, very excited about this. For one thing, we're getting some prequel era maps and obviously sequel era to go with the original series. And we also get a pretty promising story, which is going to be canon, and it's from the Empire's point of view, following the end of the Battle of Endor. So I'm very looking forward to Star Wars Battlefront 2, and hopefully it'll be way better than the first Battlefront. Even though, EA DICE did eventually add more things to the first Battlefront, they should have done that to begin with. But at the same time, I feel like they may find redemption in Star Wars Battlefront 2. The only issue I kind of have is the ability to play different heroes of different eras. Like, they had Han and Rey as playable characters at the Battle of Theed, and that just didn't sit right with me. But video games. The next game that's really, really piquing my interest is, of course, South Park, because I'm also a huge South Park fan. Fractured But Whole, which has been delayed a few times, but then again, so was Stick of Truth, and I can forgive them for delaying that game too. So, Fractured But Whole finally coming out this coming fall. I already mentioned Super Mario Odyssey, obviously a big game that is really piquing my interest, because once again, Super Mario fan, oh yeah, all the way back to the original Super Mario Brothers game on the NES. Other games piquing my interest, Forza 7. I loved Forza 6. Absolutely loved that game. In fact, I played it a few times on the channel. I never got around to playing Forza 3, Forza Horizon 3. It just didn't time out for me. I mean, I wanted to, but it just didn't work out. But anyways, I'm really excited about Forza 7. It just looks absolutely beautiful. And I can only imagine what it's going to look like on my Xbox One. Then, of course, the other two games that kind of sort of piqued my interest are Wolfenstein 2. I didn't play the first Wolfenstein that's come out recently. I mean, I played the original back in the day. You know, Mein Leben! I played that one. But I haven't played the newer Wolfenstein, the reboot. But Wolfenstein 2 looks very, very promising. Far Cry 5 also looks like it has potential as well. And I'm not really a Far Cry fan per se, but I do like the setting in Montana because I love Montana. I've never been there before, but I always envision one day, you know, running off to Montana, you know, living in a small town that might have high-speed internet and never coming back because, you know, I think I would kind of like it up there near the mountains. Okay, so those are the games that interest me or potentially interest me. They came out at E3 2017. The games that I wanted to interest me but fell short include Call of Duty World War II. I get that the story is going to be focused on, you know, a specific campaign, you know, with D-Day and an invasion into Europe against the Nazis, or the Germans, because they weren't showing swastikas. And look, I mean, I get it. The swastika is a symbol of hate and it's a vile symbol. That was once a symbol of good luck before the Nazis got a hold of it. But at the same time, it's not very historically accurate to have the flags with iron crosses instead of swastikas, especially in Wolfenstein 2, when they're all about swastikas. When you see swastikas all over the place in Wolfenstein 2, and what's going to be an alternative history game, still with Nazis, but they're not afraid to show swastikas, so props to Bethesda on that one. But Call of Duty World War II, they want to be PC and not show swastikas. Well, that's not very historically accurate. I mean, I get it. It's an evil, vile symbol that represented a very, you know, bad, you know, totalitarian regime under Hitler, but at the same time, it just felt weird. Now, I was going to hold off and give Call of Duty World War II a chance regarding the multiplayer because I wanted to see various different maps that weren't just Europe, like maybe even some Pacific campaigns, island hopping, and some stuff going on in Russia. But what I did see felt more like an arena rather than a battlefield. It just felt confined. And I think that EA DICE did a much better job with Battlefield 1 than Call of Duty's doing with Call of Duty World War II when it comes to multiplayer. But I still hope that it turns out to be a good game for all the Call of Duty fans out there. I'm just not feeling it. And I was a Call of Duty fan from back during the World War II games back in the 2000s. So I don't know. I mean, the jury's still out on Call of Duty World War II, but hopefully it'll turn out to be good by the time it comes out. The next game I really want to be excited for was Shadow of War, or Shadow of Sauron, as I rather have it been called. I mean, Shadow of War sounds kind of boring. But I was a fan of Shadow of Mordor, because I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. Yes, I know, Lord of the Rings, Super Mario, Star Wars. The list goes on, GeauxBurns. You're just a fanboy. Okay, it's true. You added me. I am a fanboy. But I enjoyed playing Shadow of Mordor. In fact, I did a few Let's Plays on the channel a long time ago. Was it the first year of the channel, I think? I don't know, but it was a while back. But I really want to be excited about the sequel. I'm not. For one thing, I don't like the way the orcs seem to be stand-up comedians. Orcs are not supposed to be like that. They're not supposed to be very bright. They're not supposed to be able to, you know, talk in, like, you know, really well put together sentences. They're supposed to be kind of brute, like, "Oh, I'm going to bash your skull then, mate." You know, that kind of crap. But the other issue I have is Mordor itself. Have you seen some of the images of Mordor? It doesn't look like fucking Mordor. Newsflash, Mordor is supposed to be surrounded by a big giant volcano called Mount Doom that spews lava, volcano ashes, and, you know, dust all over the place. Parts of the map that I've seen is tropical. It looks pretty. There's green grass all over the place. And there was some of that in Shadow of Mordor as well, but there's also some more nasty parts, but it just looks too pretty. Next, we're going to go to some pirate games, because I love pirates. We're going to talk about Sea of Thieves first, and I really want to like Sea of Thieves because it's made by Rare, and Rare made some games I loved growing up, like Donkey Kong Country, GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Viva Pinata, and a few more. But I'm just not feeling Sea of Thieves. I've seen 2 trailers for it over the past few months. A weird YouTuber one, and as a YouTuber, I had issue with it. Don't get me started on it. But then the one they showed at E3, it made me feel even less. I'm just not feeling Sea of Thieves. It's like an MMO pirate game. It just feels like Rare is trying to appeal to too many people. Like they're trying to have like an E for everyone type of branding when it comes with Sea of Thieves. And they're trying to make everybody happy. But these are pirates we're talking about. And pirates are not supposed to be cute and friendly. It's supposed to be brutal, you know, and grimy and gritty. And like, I'm just saying. It feels like, you know, Pirates of the Caribbean is a little bit darker tone than Sea of Thieves. And Pirates of the Caribbean is Disney, for crying out loud. So, I don't know. I mean, I hope it turns out to be good. I know a lot of people are playing the alpha right now. And hopefully, if the alpha is good, let me know below in the comments section. But at the moment, I'm just not feeling Sea of Thieves. The other pirate game, which was put on by Ubisoft, is called, I think, Skull and Bones, a.k.a. Black Flag 2. And I always believed that, you know, Black Flag could have been its own IP. That they could have eventually taken Black Flag, one of my favorite Assassin's Creed games, by the way, and they could have made it its own IP. But it looks like Bethesda's kind of sort of doing that, and they just renamed it. Instead of calling it Black Flag 2, they're calling it Skull and Bones. But the problem is it feels like they've taken the pirate out of the game, and they're just letting you be pirate ships. And the pirate ships are cool, but that's not all we want when it comes to a pirate game, Ubisoft. We want to be pirates as well. And maybe we'll be able to be pirates by the time the final product comes out. But whenever they showed those battles and the fact they finally made it to where, you know, two ships collided and that's when you would have pirates boarding ships and pirates fighting each other. It was like one of those auto-resolve things where, like, you automatically win. And, like, hell no, I don't want that. What I want is to be able to, like, whenever the two ships collide, is you go into, you know, third-person or first-person pirate mode, and, you know, you swing across from one ship to the other, and you get into sword fights, you know, fighting, and then you get into musket fights as well, fighting and killing and hacking and slashing each other until there's, you know, a winner. You know, whoever wins the fight, you know, is the one who gets to capture the ship and the booty. The prize goes to the winner. I don't like this auto-resolve nonsense. So hopefully that'll be resolved when it comes to Skull and Bones, a.k.a. Black Flag 2. The other game that I was kind of sort of looking forward to was the new Spider-Man game. And I think that a lot of us, I guess, had expectations based on previous Spider-Man games. And while this one does look good, I will say that. It looks really good. There's a lot of quick time going on with this game. And to be honest, it just doesn't feel like I was wanting it to be. And it could still turn out to be a fantastic game, but I don't know. I was kind of envisioning it to be more like, you know, older Spider-Man games. But anyways, that's just beside the point. The other game that I was kind of trying to, you know, get excited about is Assassin's Creed Origins. I talked about Assassin's Creed Black Flag a few minutes ago, which is one of my favorite Assassin's Creed games. I really want to be excited about for Assassin's Creed Origins because it feels like that Ubisoft has taken some time to try and reboot the franchise, even though apparently they're going to, you know, keep the animus, they're going to keep all the present day nonsense that most of us don't really care about. We don't care about that shit anymore. I mean, it was good for the first 3 Assassin's Creed games, but, you know, that story should be over and done with. What we want to focus on is just, you know, the past. I like this setting. I like the fact that it's, what, 49 BC in Egypt, which means that there could be some Roman stuff going on as well. That'd be kind of cool if it wasn't just Egypt, but also Roman. But basically, they showed a lot of Egypt. In fact, all of it was Egypt. But I'm just saying, there was just some things about Assassin's Creed Origins that really felt odd to me. I hope it turns out to be way better by the time it comes out. But right now, I'm still at the fence. You know, I'm not even on the fence. I'm at the fence when it comes to Assassin's Creed Origins. And of course, I did talk about how much I love Forza 7, another racing game I'm not as excited about. Well, 2 racing games. Crew 2, I'm not really feeling it, especially since they tried to tease us and trick us with that opening cinematic, which was obviously cinematic, and then they tried to sneak in some real gameplay along with the cinematic. I'm not feeling it. Even if you can use a boat or use a plane to get around this map, I'm just not feeling it right now. And I tried to like the original Crew. It just didn't work for me. But then again, Crew 2 could turn out to be way better. That's just my opinion regarding Crew. The other racing game that is not really doing it for me is Need for Speed Payback. It just looks very scripted. Extremely scripted and very hard to believe. Maybe too much like Burnout. You're in this Mustang, right? You're racing down the highway, and you're knocking these beamers out of your way, and they're flying in the air all Michael Bay slow-mo like, and you're not really taking any damage. It just, I don't know, it's a video game, but it just feels, I don't know, there's just something about it I don't like, and I get it. It's not going to be like Forza 7. I completely understand that, but it's just not wowing me at all when it comes to Need for Speed Payback. And I, once upon a time played a couple Need for Speed games that I loved those back in the day. I'm just not feeling this one. And finally, the game that's just not doing it for me anymore is an oldie, but it's one that Bethesda just keeps bringing out over and over and over again. No, I'm not talking about Fallout 4 VR. I'm talking about Skyrim. Look, I'm an Elder Scrolls fan. I loved Skyrim. I put countless days, hours, weeks into Skyrim back on the Xbox 360. I even put a few hours into Skyrim Special Edition on Xbox One. But Bethesda, it's time to move on. Okay, so you got Skyrim coming to Switch. Yay. And you're going to be able to use your amiibos to get Link shields and Link swords and whatever else. Maybe even Mario hats. I don't know. But they're also coming out with a Skyrim VR. I guess that's what, for PS4? And I'm just sitting there going, Bethesda, okay, haven't you made enough money off of Skyrim already? Can we please move on to Elder Scrolls 6? I mean, us Elder Scrolls fans have been waiting for quite some time for the next Elder Scrolls game. And as much as some of us love Skyrim, you can't keep wowing us with the music. I mean, yes, the music was awesome, but you always try and pull us in with the music, okay? So it worked for getting me Skyrim Special Edition on the Xbox One. It's not going to work for Skyrim Switch, and it's definitely not going to work for Skyrim VR because I don't even have a VR headset. But anyways, that's my pretty much views and opinions about E3 2017. Overall, lackluster, and I really feel like the days of these big gaming conventions are starting to wind down, and they really went over the top trying to appeal to the YouTubers, content creators, and streamers. There were so many YouTubers, content creators, and streamers at E3. Most of them I don't even know or ever heard of, and I'm a content creator, and I'm sure most of them never heard of me either, so that's, a thing too. But yeah, so I just not really feeling E3. I haven't for years, to be honest, and E3 2017 was no exception. And I don't know what's going to take to, re-enthuse interest in these conferences, but I feel like it's starting to go downhill, especially with internet becoming more popular and, more games being covered by streamers, by content creators. That's where the consumers, the fans are going to these days. Us, the content creators, the YouTubers, the streamers, as opposed to E3. I mean, I don't know if there's going to be an E3 next year. There probably will be, but I think slowly but surely you're going to start seeing a decline in E3. And the fact that you have other conferences as well, like Gamescom in Europe, as well as the various PAXs. So that also dilutes the water when it comes to the gaming conferences because there's just so many out there. And there's several developers that are not even bothering to go to E3, like Rockstar. They've never cared for Rockstar. In fact, they released their new DLC this past Tuesday during E3, and that shows how little Rockstar gives a you-know-what about E3. Now, coming up next week, it's that time of the month again, Ant Flow. Yep, Q&A 26.0, your opportunity to ask me whatever question you want. It can be about the video games I play, gaming in general. It can be about YouTubing. It can be about personal questions, advice, views, opinions, etc. One question per person, please. And you can submit your questions below in the comments section. Hashtag Q&A26. Or you can do it via Twitter, Facebook, email, GeauxBurns@gmail.com. Just be sure and put hashtag Q&A26. Or just hashtag Q&A, either or, whichever works for you. Just do that so that I know that it's a Q&A question. So anyways, that's what's happening next week. Q&A 26.0.